Morning, everybody, and thank you, Dale. It is indeed really a pleasure to be here. The Dodge Foundation, as you know, has been a major supporter of arts education in the state for many years, so I'm really standing on the shoulders of people who came long before me. I also want to acknowledge Nick Paleologos. Nick has been a great partner from our standpoint. We've together been big supporters of the arts and arts education. And I would acknowledge Nick, despite the fact that he had the gall to wear a Boston Red Sox tie as he came in here today and to flaunt it as he walks around. But at any rate, Nick, I'm really acknowledge all the work you've done. Jeremy Grunin, Jeremy, great to have a partner also in arts funding and arts support. Pleasure to have been getting to know you and to see the work that you're doing. It's terrific, and we really are glad to be able to partner with you. And I also need to acknowledge Bob Morrison, because, as you all know, none of this would have happened without Bob. Bob has been a true leader for all of us. So Bob. And then finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my own board member, Barbara Moran, who was the head of the State Arts Council and a Dodge board member, and also a longtime supporter of the arts, as well as Wendy Lisco, who is our education program director, who again also has been a great supporter of arts and arts education, and of course Sharnita Johnson, our new now for a couple of years, but our arts program director, who's not with us today. She's at another conference, but together they have all been leaders. And again, I'm a follower from that standpoint. I came long after they all got involved and have made great contributions to the arts. So thank you to Barbara and to Wendy and to Sharnita. So let's bring up our panelists. Can we come up? And given that this is an education program, we have to have them lined up alphabetically, so you'll notice that we're going to do this alphabetically. And as they're coming in, let me introduce them. But I'm going to let you read the bios because we'll save the time from that. First, Rose Acera from the Jersey PTA, Marie Blissan from the New Jersey Education Association, Rich Baza, the New Jersey Association of School Administrators, Larry Feinstadt from the New Jersey School Boards Association, and Pat Wright from the New Jersey Principal and Supervisors Association. So welcome, everybody. Good to have you all here. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to save some time at the end to hear what might be on your minds and things that you might want to hear from them. So first, we have three new panelists here, and it's the three women. And I'd like to begin by having you tell us a little bit of a maybe personal story about arts education. Was there anything that you've done in arts education that is particularly memorable in your life, or particularly might have even changed what you've done in your life? So Rose.
Thank you. First, I want to also thank Bob Morrison for allowing a parent to be as part of this panel, because I think the parent voice is very important. But for myself, I go back personally in high school, never interested in the arts at all. And I remember my guidance counselor saying to me, you know, you got the grades, you have this, but you need to get a little bit more involved. And I don't remember exactly how it happened, but somehow I ended up in the art room. It could have been the teacher that was just full of personality, or the students that were in that class. And I did some work in the art room. And I learned quickly that when you were asked for something, a blue color, you asked what shade of blue. But then as I went on and I became a parent, and I was a PTA president, I remember we would host Art Week at our school, and you were able to go in to your child's art room and just participate with them, see what the class was doing. And my son was getting a little frustrated, and I said to him, I turned around and I said, Rich, don't worry, we just don't have that art gene. And that art teacher was standing right behind me. And she pretty much, she let me know that the arts is part of our every day, and boy, did I learn that quickly. So I don't make statements like that anymore. So that has been my experience.
Great. Marie.
Thank you, Chris. Similar to Rose, I did not have a lot of exposure to the arts growing up until about my senior year in high school. And for some reason or another, I decided I was going to go out for the senior one-act play. And had no acting experience. I found that I loved it. Somehow I wound up with the lead in the play. And believe it or not, I was very shy as a kid. and through my high school years. And I learned a lot of leadership skills and a lot of collaborative work, teamwork in that experience, and I loved it. I then went on, became a teacher of students in special education, and what really struck me was during my first years, and during those times, by the way, the art teacher, the music teacher, they were there because they provided prep time for regular ed teachers and special ed teachers. Thank goodness that has evolved to a different level at this time. But I bring it up because I was working with students at that time in middle school who were somewhat difficult to handle, both academically and behaviorally. And I literally saw, at the age of 21, the difference when we had our art teacher come into my classroom, work with my students, which at that time was every other week, once a week for a period, and if they were able to take chorus or some type of music lesson. When they returned to my class, and I didn't know a lot of research, but I saw the difference in their academic performance and their behavior with me. I then eventually went on to teach in high school, and I immediately became involved with the school play and musical, and my better half, I will say, I married a fellow teacher of students and special education teacher, but as you know, as teachers, we usually hold 2 and 3 jobs, and Mr. Bob Liston is multi-talented as a musician, as an actor, and was also the assistant director to the school play, and I was his assistant for 20 years.
Great. Somehow, I have trouble thinking that you might have been shy at one point. Pat?
Well, I'm going to share a very recent experience with you, and it was with my grandson, who was only a year and a half. And I had the privilege of taking my grandson to a music class that he has been attending since he was 8 months old. And the joy that these children experience at that young age, and the love that you can see already in him because he started at such a young age, his love of music is unbelievable. He can't even speak yet, but I have an Alexa in my house, and we often play the songs that he learns at his music class. And now he's trying to go, ah, la, la, Alexa, to try to get that music going, and it's one of his favorite things to do. And when I see that kids at that age aren't self-conscious, they bounce around, they're with the music, they do whatever gives them joy. And I think that really struck home as I knew that I was going to be sitting on this panel, about how important it is to start arts education at such a young age, and to give students that appreciation that they don't have to be self-conscious about how they perform. It's not only about that. I see him developing social skills with the students that he's been with in this class once a week for a long time, considering he's only a year and a half, a long time. But I see them already cooperating, already sharing the musical instruments, and deepening their social emotional learning as they go through this. So there's so many connections with the arts, but I thought that was a very particular one that really makes us appreciate how young students, that we need to start arts education and really give them this exposure from a very young age.
Great, thank you. So each of you has, or your organization, participated in the 2015 summit. Can you talk a little bit about what might have transpired there that made you do something, and what your organization has done as a result of the summit? Larry, why don't we start with you?
I did participate, proudly so, in the 2015 summit. When I got back to the office that particular day, later in the day, had a talk with some of our senior staff, and one of the things that was certainly bothering me and bothering many on staff was the emphasis on STEM and not STEAM. And we're very STEM-oriented at New Jersey school boards in many ways, as all of you are, but we weren't so STEAM-oriented. So we went on a campaign to all of the thousands of school board members, and our publications reach all of the superintendents who were extremely supportive, and school business officials who were also supportive, and many others, to make STEM STEAM. And in all of our publications, that has become a reality, including at our conferences. Since 2015, we've also had a couple of other exciting happenings at New Jersey school boards, and one is pretty recent, actually. We have developed a STEAM relationship, talk about Bruce Springsteen, with Steve Van Zandt. Yeah. As you know, he is head of the Rock and Roll Forever Foundation. And so we have developed a partnership, and through Steve, we have offered all of the educators in New Jersey, thanks to Steve and his organization, online activities and curricula, all for free, sponsored by this Rock and Roll Forever Foundation. And at our upcoming workshop at the end of October, we're going to have some interesting surprises in that area. So we're really, really excited. And oh, by the way, we've also had some workshops regarding the Rock and Roll Foundation, and one of the recent workshops also featured Arts Education Now. So we're off and running, and last but not least, we've become the only school boards association in the nation to have a partnership with the U.S. Army, and we have a STEAM specialist, an active duty officer embedded on our staff at New Jersey school boards.
Terrific. Great. Rich, how about,
Mostly I sit by Larry. Actually, after the last president, which was very traumatic for me because I had to admit that it was kind of like math. We never got along well in the arts. I carried a big bass for a little while and decided that wasn't it and thought that athletics would work. But before I get to that point, I just wanted to share a story that you talked about, a moment that was important for you. I was, as you know, but many don't, I was superintendent of the Marie Katzenbach School for the Deaf for 4 years, which was a pathway that I never knew that I would take. And I learned a lot there. I learned that I was the illiterate person because I was not able to communicate. And we had a very special program for deaf-blind students. And we began, the second half of the program, we began with 14-year-olds and up, which was very difficult because of where they had matured in their lives, and then began a program with earlier students beginning around 7 years old. And the transformational moment for me was watching the art therapist work with those students who are both deaf and blind in their sensory impairments, and to see the progress and the things that those children could do beginning at an earlier age. If you would have asked, what's art therapy? You know, I wouldn't, but to see it in action and to see it help the most impaired children that I've ever encountered was really very moving for me. With regard to what we've done since 2015, we're really at the end of our work of developing our Vision 2020, which was the association's view for what public education should become. We felt as though that 2020 talked about the accuracy and also the year 2020, and as I approach 2020, realize we've got work to begin again. But we maintain certainly a thrust in saying that a well-rounded student in all components of education is critically important, and arts is certainly at the top of that list. The other thing that I think is probably most critical, as we have gone through so many years of difficulties in providing the resources for programs during tough financial times and lack of sufficient state funding, is to make sure that as we talk as school leaders, to maintain the importance of that well-rounded, because there's that tendency to peel the apple back to get to the core when you don't have the resources, but we've made sure that we've said that arts are indeed at the core.
Well, since the last time you had a panel discussion, I happened to bring our NJEA, oh, this is the wrong one, here. I did bring our NJEA review, and we did a feature article on that panel discussion that you had here, which goes out to 200,000 families across the state. We have featured a number of our schools on our Classroom CloseUp program. One of the programs featured one of our teachers who grew up in Camden, became a music teacher. His brother is a music teacher, and it won an Emmy Award. And the second one was at one of our charter schools where we have members, where we represent Teaneck Charter. It was just on about 2 weeks ago, and that was also nominated for an Emmy Award. One of our associate directors who is here with us today, Dawn Hiltner, avid supporter of the program, is a member and sits on the board here with the arts program now. And the then Secretary Treasurer, but now Vice President with me, Sean Spiller, and I recently met with the State Theater Arts Program people, and we are talking about partnership going forward.
Great. Pat?
Okay. I want to start by acknowledging someone in the room who has been instrumental in the things that I'm going to talk to you about now, and that's Mary Reese. Mary Reese is our Director of Special Projects. That's always a great title, isn't it? Director of Special Projects. That could mean anything. But for Mary, her commitment to the arts has been outstanding, and she now is the chairperson of the Arts Ed New Jersey Board. And she's the driving force of arts within our association. And I want to say that because of her, FEA has sponsored an arts education professional learning series with Arts Ed. We've also been represented on the leadership team of SP3, which is the State Policy Pilot Program. And a direct benefit of our involvement was the set aside by the NJEA of $1 million in Title I carryover funds, which has allowed for a pilot project in 9 schools on arts integration. We also are deeply involved with New Jersey school boards and others on the integrating STEAM into the Sustainable New Jersey program. And so we have worked hard on developing the structure that will allow that to occur. And in addition, for the past 5 years, and thank you to the Dodge Foundation, for the past 5 years, through the Dodge Foundation and SANS, we've been able to we've touched 100 schools who are now deeply involved in arts integration. They attend a 3-day training during the summer at Princeton with teams of teachers and leaders from those schools. They receive ongoing coaching throughout the year from our organization in how to get this right. And we're very proud of the impact that that's had on those 100 schools. And we hope more to continue.
Great. Rose?
New Jersey PTA is an advocacy association. I know most people hear PTA and they think it's fundraising, but foremost, we are an advocacy association. And in dealing with the art education program, we definitely made arts an advocacy priority. We work with our PTAs, and we have empowered parents to fight for the rights in schools. When you find out that the teacher, they're taking away her classroom and they're going to put her with a cart going up and down the hallway, or take the music teacher and now her classroom is on the stage behind the curtain, and that's just not okay. So that is something that we have been working with our PTAs to make sure that they don't accept that, and then they go to their Board of Education meetings and they speak to their decision makers why this is not okay. Also, we deal with a lot of schools that have very low budgets. So one thing that we've been promoting is sharing ideas to bring assemblies and even sponsor field trips for these kids, because unfortunately a lot of these students don't go to the museum, or just something simple. Where I live, we happen to have a great museum, and you're teaching history and the arts at the same time. They're going on this field trip and they're noticing, what their town was like, and now all these years later. So that's something that we've been working on at New Jersey PTA.
And how about the 2017 census, the one just out, and the survey from Eagleton? Is there anything in that information that surprised any of you, or made you say, boy, we really need to think about this and do something different? And whoever would like to start is fine. Go ahead, Marie.
There were a couple things. The thing, though, that did stand out, I knew that we didn't have a lot of teachers in the arts, but I had no idea what the ratio was. And when I saw the ratio, I think it was in dance and maybe the theater,
Theater,
was like
exactly.
3,000 and 5,000 to 1. It really hit home with me that we have to pursue getting talented students enrolled in college prep programs that are interested in coming into the teaching profession.
Great.
That was stood
Yep.
out with me.
Larry?
As far as the Eagleton results are concerned, obviously there's a lot of very positive and what I call happy findings. But it is distressing that in the lower socioeconomic districts, there is less spent per pupil on arts education. That disturbs me, as I know it disturbs all of you. We all know that poverty is not a friend of education. And so when we identify a statistic such as that, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to try our best to do something when we meet the thought leaders around the state, as well as the legislators and folks in the governor's office and so on. And the shame of the matter is, in the more affluent districts where greater funds are spent, it's also the places where kids have the opportunity, because of the affluence, to have arts experiences outside the classroom. That's not the case, as we all know, in our areas that experience poverty. So this is a real cause, and it's something that we all have to work collectively to try to improve upon moving forward. And also, as Bob mentioned, was it 26 schools? And he's right, getting those 26 schools aboard, and I pledge New Jersey school boards will take an active stance in that as well, would be an incredible happening and would also help in this aspect of what I just pointed out.
So there's two things that really jumped out at me. In the Eagleton poll, it was absolutely astounding to me that more than half of those responding said they did never or had never taken a child to an arts-related event. 37% admitted that they had never encouraged a student to participate, or a child to participate in the arts. Couple that with the fact of the decrease in field trips and artist and residency programs within our school. How are we motivating and engaging students from a very young age in appreciation for the arts? That's troubling. The other thing that is extremely troubling to me is that in the census, it was reported that 46% of schools engage in arts integration or have arts integration programs. Only 3% reported that teachers have time for collaboration and common planning to fully integrate. When you look at the census and you think about the fact that we have almost universal access in New Jersey, and now, as the census states, we need to think about the quality of these programs within our schools. I ask, how can you ever have a quality integrated arts program that's truly integrated without having time for the adults and the educators to have common time to plan that, to develop assessments for that integration, and to reflect on the data that comes back from the assessments to see if we're hitting the targets that we want to hit. So that really jumped out at me because, as you know, NJEA and FEA are strong components of professional learning communities. And this is another place where there is a lack of true understanding about what the job of professional learning communities are if they have them in their schools. So.
Great. Did you want to say anything, Rich?
Yeah, I would agree, I think, with, I'd like to take it as a challenge. Well, first of all, the great support that was reflected there from the public, I think, was a little bit surprising to me. It was so overwhelming. But I think the challenge of dance and theater, I wouldn't take it as a problem. I think it's a challenge. I think as Bob's placed out there, where he's rightfully indicated, I think that this is somewhat of an education issue that we have to raise with our leaders. as well as some of the resources. But on the other side, I think what Larry's pointed out is the level, the type, the quality of education that children in the most deprived areas of our state, what does that look like? And again, I always bring that back to what are the resources that will allow us to do that. And I think we're going forward in a very challenging time looking at how we fund our schools and to what level we fund them, given the issues that we've been talking about for a number of years. And I think that's going to remain very critically important if we're going to be providing a great education for all kids in our state.
Rose, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just, I did everything everyone else said, but the one thing that struck me was when you looked at those that were surveyed, the majority did feel that the arts were extremely important or somewhat important, but yet we still have so much more work to do to come and, the numbers have gotten a lot better, but they're not where they need to be.
So for me, I was struck by the decline in participation in cultural activities by students. I mean, that was the one thing that really showed a decline, and it was a significant decline from 2006 in terms of assemblies, field trips, partnerships, artists in residence. So two things. It seems that the largest part of the reason for that is associated with time. A, is that true? And B, is it also associated with money? Because I think field trips have been related to insurance. As you know, we've tried to work with the Community Foundation of New Jersey to develop what we call Field Trip New Jersey to try to put a pool of money together to help underwrite some field trip activities for kids. But this is a significant issue also, I think. So talk a little bit about that time factor. Is it related to testing? Is it because we have to spend so much time on testing? And if so, how do we deal with that problem of decline in cultural participation by students?
I think we've relied forever, it seems, on parent organizations to really enrich the curriculum. Foundations over the last couple of decades at the local level have meant to enrich as that funding aspect has gotten tighter and tighter. And so as the problems became, there is no stopping of adding things on for us to do in schools, right? Nobody's ever said you've had a great year, calm down, relax, work on what you got going, right? There's always one more rule that we have, whether it comes from the legislature or from our State Board of Education. I've often said to them, look, let's review everything you've done for a while, give us a break, all right? So I think all of that impinges upon time, it impinges upon resources, it impinges upon the teachers that we're able to hire given those constraints. And so you've hit on a number of things. I wouldn't point to assessment as the most critical issue. I would say resources of time and money.
Okay. Anybody else? Pat?
I think time and money, I'm not saying that time and money is not a factor, but I also think that purposefulness needs to be a factor here, that going back to when you think about arts integration, when you are integrating the arts successfully, you are actually meeting state standards in not only the arts, but other content areas. And that's where field trips, cultural activities, all of those things have a particular reason for happening in order to move learning forward. And I think that sometimes, I think it's a re-examination of what are the types of field trips we're taking, how are we using our resources currently, how can we partner with outside organizations, and how can we think about the purposefulness, because I think the more you communicate the why of what you're doing and show how it's moving student learning forward in both the arts and regular education, the arts and other content areas, then you get more buy-in from everyone within the community, right? We're not just going on a trip. And that, that's important to go and trip and enjoy that experience. But in schools, there should be a tone to the learning that is occurring and how is that tied into the integration of arts within that curriculum.
Reese, you said you want to say something?
Yeah, as a classroom teacher well over 30 years, I will absolutely say unequivocally that there has been an overemphasis on reading, language arts, and math. Not that they're not important, they are, but they all are taught to be applied in life. And in our country, in this society, unfortunately, the policymakers have gone far too overboard on emphasizing that. Everything we do in our public schools is regulated, it's legislated, or it's done by statute. And I think that policymakers have put that into place, but we forget that there are policy drivers. And when we talk about the policy drivers, they are all of the stakeholders, not just the educational community, but all the stakeholders in the educational community. And that means our parents and community access and community businesses. I started to think about what else we could do, right, to raise that awareness. And I remember when Rutgers started a program a little over 25 years ago called Family Math. And I happened to be one of the teachers. I was in first class, right? And I was trained to train trainers. And then they expanded into family science. And the reason that was done was because we saw that there was a lack of math and science teachers, and to raise the awareness, and also that there was a fear with some children and some adults that they couldn't do those subjects. Well, I would venture to say that we should maybe start looking at a family arts program that we could put out. And
Absolutely. Larry, you had you too.
Yeah, I perhaps have a minority viewpoint on this, but I think testing does have a factor or does play a role in taking some valuable time away. And please don't misunderstand, this is not a criticism of PARC. For those of you that have really looked at PARC, I have. It's a heck of a good test. And the Department of Education has taken steps to lower the amount of time. I think further steps are necessary. But we've also discovered that school districts, well-intentioned to be sure, implement all kinds of assessments and other types of measurements. So maybe we do have to take a look at how we're assessing kids, not just from the state, but how we're doing it at the local level as well. And I think that, I think what we need is perhaps a better balance. I think balance is the key word that educators need to take a look at. And the other thing that I think we need to improve upon is communication. As everyone here has indicated, it's clear that the arts promote academic achievement. But I don't think any of us, and I'll put my organization at the top of the list, I don't think any of the organizations, including the arts organizations, I think it's still a secret to a lot of people that kids benefit so tremendously from exposure to the arts. Better academic performance, decreased dropout rates, and higher levels of college attendance. The literature that I read clearly spells this out. Involvement in the arts, children are 3 times more likely to receive a college degree. And we can go on and on and on. It's still a secret to that supportive population out there, these facts. And I think if these facts get out and become part of the day-to-day dialogue, maybe that balance that I mentioned a moment ago can take hold.
Did you want to add?
Yes, I just, so family engagement for PTA is very, very important. So Marie, we're on that family arts program. I think that would be a great tie-in. But, we all agree that the arts are so important for our kids, especially those of us in this room, and that they mold, it's the arts that mold the student and make them a better person. I think it comes down to priority. And I know as a parent, it's easy for me to say, because I'm not the one that's trying to figure out how I'm going to get everything into a day. But, the arts is not just about sitting in an art room. It's writing, it's, listening to music. It's just, combining it with some other subject matter that is also exploring that child's creativity.
So let me build on that a minute too, because I think none of you mentioned this, but to me, it's also about commitment that's related to that, and meaning from school boards, from superintendents, from principals. Because we do have examples of schools where arts are, in other words, we've seen a decline, but there are obviously areas where it's not. And so it would be instructive in my mind if we would identified those schools, figure out what it is that made that work, and see if we can't replicate it in the districts where that's not happening. And but the commitment to me is a major part of it. You make it a priority, and somehow people respond. So with that in mind, talk a little bit more about creativity. We know that everybody talks about creativity as being the skill for the 21st century. We need it. We have a big focus on STEM and creativity there, but what people often don't focus on is those little toys we work with, the iPads, the iPhones, and all that. The amount of design work and creativity that goes into those are incredible, every bit as important as the technological side of it. So talk a little bit about knowing that the arts are what people turn to when they think about fostering creativity. How can we bring creativity more into the school programs and the different disciplines?
Well, I'm going to say that I do think it does start at the top, and we are very proud to be partners with and working with the School Boards Association, PSA, the superintendents, and the PTA. In fact, at our NJEA Convention, we have a full day, Larry, that we're sharing on
Yes.
the iSteam tank
Yes.
that we're putting forth. We have at least 6 different workshops at NJEA. But I'm going to tell you I get out to our schools all the time. I love being in there. And there's a program that we, again, featured on Classroom CloseUp, by the way, in, I think it was Southern Regional where we were, Bliss, where they had a 3D printer. And they had students in special education working with students in the engineering area at the high school, and they were making prosthetic hands. And that, to me, is the application of the arts. And I don't think that we're doing a good enough job of making that connection, that it isn't, as you said, Rose, just the art class or the music class. When we talk about that creativity, we're talking about people who go into the baking field. We're talking about people who go into the clothes design field, who go into making buildings and so on. So that...
Great. Somebody else had a comment on that? Go ahead, Rich.
I think what technology is going to allow us to do is a goal that is spoken a lot about, not individualization, but personalization, and that we will be able, I think, as we go along, to eliminate some of the assessment that we do, because we'll have great data in real time, that we'll be able to alter and tailor students' programs to their desires, their needs, and I think we start thinking about education outside of the classroom. What happens, and there's certainly this push now in the high school, what happens with children who are gifted in certain areas that are able to be advanced and enjoy the benefits of county colleges, for example. And so I think as we look to personalize that, what has to be on the top of our priority, that it isn't just math, arts, math, science, social studies, that we have to look at this in a broad sense, and that graduation requirements then can be personalized as well, understanding that there are certain competencies there. And I think that opens the door for many more opportunities. Looking at it from the individual student's perspective, and looking at it from not just within the 4 walls that the student is in.
Anybody else on that question? Let's talk about a little bit more about STEM to STEAM. Larry talked about it, and we talk about things as a priority. There's a number of STEM initiatives in the state. In fact, there's a conference going on right now at Liberty Science Center as we speak here that is focusing on jobs of the future, and it's all STEM focused. We have Rochelle Hendricks has an effort she's done out of the Department of Higher Education on the STEM network, and Wendy Lisco and others have been pounding away at them saying, no, STEAM, 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 STEAM. Don't you get it? STEAM. And I think we need more efforts in that regard, that all of you as leaders, it would be great to continue to promote the idea that you can't just focus on the STEM side of it. You need to bring arts in. And so talk a little bit about that from your organization's perspective. Larry, you mentioned it once, but maybe talk a little bit more about it.
We had a unique thing occur, and Marie and her team at the NJEA contacted us and said, hey, this is great. Can we work with you and showcase it, which they're doing at the NJEA conference this year. With our unique relationship with the U.S. Army, with their help and guidance, a year ago we involved and created the Steam Tank Challenge after the Shark Tank on TV. Again, you're looking for creative ways to get the creative arts involved. And it's a makerspace competition in which student teams compete. They compete for recognition through invention and problem solving. Through invention and problem solving. It's amazing. Again, it developed from our partnership with the Army. The Army had more to do with it than we did. But as we learned and as we partnered and collaborated, it was like a wow moment for us. Last year we got it off the ground. This year we had 191 teams of students around the state competing to get to New Jersey School Board's conference, which we partner with ASA and with the school business officials, to get there to show their creative projects. So we had 500 kids participating, and through different competitions, we're now going to have 33 teams competing at the end of October. And it's amazing. It starts in kindergarten and it ends in 12th grade. And the NJEA has taken this entity, this idea and concept, and under Marie's leadership, they're working with it, and they invited me to be at their conference this year, which I'm so excited about. And Marie and her folks come to ours. And this Steam Tank Challenge is all about student creativity and problem solving.
Great. Anybody else on that? Yeah, go ahead.
So when I talk to parents about the STEM to STEAM, unfortunately, some parents, they see the importance of science, and they actually think the art portion of it is going to almost distract, and those are the words that I've heard. And, when you do the research and again, I bring it back up to the creativity piece of it. You just can't ignore it. And, our partnership with all these great organizations has helped us. We use Larry, I hope you don't mind, but John Henry, who works for school boards, just today, we've been talking about getting together because I see him as, I call him the STEAM guru. And, I know that he can help New Jersey PTA get that positive word out to the parents. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next few months.
So let me open it up a little bit. You all have questions that you would like to ask the panelists. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Russo from Young Audiences.
Hang on, Michelle.
I'm still dying here. Michelle Russo from Young. Is it on?
No.
Michelle Russo from Young Audiences. I wanted to share that the Family Arts Program actually exists. Going back to what was discussed before, I don't know if Maureen is in the room. Maureen Heffernan. So it was developed with funding from Dodge about, I want to say 15 or 20 years ago it started to get developed. And it continues to exist, and Young Audiences still implements the program and fundraises to do that work. So we would be happy to share more with you about it and have you come and film it. We feel that that connection between the child's experience at school and the parents is really important, and having the parents work side by side with the children to engage in these creative activities only strengthens the students' learning. So just wanted to add that to the conversation and also give credit to Maureen Heffernan, who was behind the scenes creating that program at the Institute for Arts and Humanities Education.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Any questions, comments? Oh, boy, this is a sleepy group. Come on. There you go,
Raise your
right
hands,
back
we'll
here.
come to you.
We've got come in the back. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Barbara Basha, I'm the president of Dance New Jersey. Hello, my name is Barbara Basha, and I'm the president of Dance New Jersey, and I also run a dance teacher preparation program at Rutgers. And I just wanted to thank the panelists for mentioning how we really need to do much better in terms of getting dance and theater into our schools. A lot of times I hear schools say, we're an A+ arts school, but they don't have dance or theater. And I don't think 6% of schools having that have the 4 arts in their schools is an A+. That's not an A+. So I really appreciate that data jumped out at you and for you to publicly, really talk about that deficit. We got to look at ways of really bringing that equity to our students here in New Jersey.
Great. We're letting the panelists off easy. Any questions?
Hi, good morning. I'm Heather McCall. I'm the Program Director of Sustainable Jersey for Schools. And there are a lot of fabulous partners in this room that have helped our program grow over the past 3 years. Right now, 47% of school districts are registered and participating in Sustainable Jersey for Schools. Just under 700 schools are participating. In October, we'll be certifying 194, total of 194 districts in the 3 years. And I'm proud to report that 84% of those certified schools, 84% of that 194, have chosen to highlight and include arts in their application. So they're not just talking about waste and water and facilities operations and policies. They're highlighting that their school offers all 4 arts disciplines. They're highlighting that student participation in the arts is happening in their school, and they're highlighting classroom learning under our Education for Sustainability arts category. And as Patricia mentioned, we are adding, thanks to the work from staff from Young Audience of New Jersey, Arts Ed Now, NJPSA, and John Henry, the guru, back there, a suite of 5 I-STEAM, integrated STEAM actions that gives schools credit under our certification program for creating that space, for funding and supporting at the district level, and in the teacher learning area to create that space for I-STEAM learning to happen. So there is structure, there is peer pressure, and there's even grant money. We've given $1.2 million in grants away to participating schools and districts, and right now we have a cycle open thanks to NJEA, $180,000 in grants, closes October 30th. It's on our website for teachers and districts to use you can use it to any of our actions, including art. So refurbishing old instruments, creating work that relates back to sustainability, those types of things. So thank you to all the partners here for your support. We're proud to work with you.
Thank you. One more. Go ahead, last one.
Thank you. James Munoz, South Orange Maplewood Schools Supervisor of Arts. In echoing putting all art forms in schools, one of the challenges I noticed is that the scheduling issue is a problem. And it'd be wonderful to have templates or a resource where you could say these are wonderful schedules occurring already across the nation, across the state, showing arts programming and arts scheduling in schools. I have some. My son happens to go to a really good one, but the problem I always see is that at the end of the year, when they look back, if the scheduling's not done right for your dance, your drama, and all your different programs, sometimes school administrators look at it and say, well, that wasn't really effective, so maybe we need to cut that. And you say, well, it's the scheduling that would make it more effective. So that kind of resource for scheduling in schools would be wonderful. Thank you.
Let us wrap up. I'd like each of you, if you would, to comment on what advice would you give folks here for getting greater student participation in the arts in the school districts? Anybody want to start off? Go ahead, Reese. The shy person, go ahead.
I would just say that I'm going to emphasize again that we have policy makers, but we have policy drivers when we're dealing with public education in particular. And we have a new administration who will be coming into the state with a new governor and maybe some new legislators as well. And we need to step up, all of us, all the stakeholders, to promote the arts, to take the rightful place that it should have in education, so that in fact we could provide those schedules that would be modeled. I think everyone on this panel agrees with the direction that we need to go, and the fact that we have an opportunity before us to do that. And I'm going to echo that I wrote 3 things down, Pat, before I got here about what would I absolutely recommend, and that collaborative time I had down as well.
That's what I was just going to say
Yeah.
now, on a simple level. You know, Marie, we work very hard
Yes.
too with the teacher leadership
Yep.
endorsement that's about to happen. I would like to see teachers of arts be teacher leaders in our schools and take that challenge to facilitate strong professional learning community teams where true integration of the arts can occur, and then you spread an understanding within your own school and your own community, because it's at that level. We can do a lot with policy, but it's at the implementation level in your own community that it will make a huge difference as parents see student learning enhanced through the arts. And the answers lie, I think sometimes we always think we have to go outside of ourselves for the answer. I always say that it's almost like we have outsourced our profession sometimes. We're going to bring in people to tell us the answers. The answers lie within your own arts educators within your schools and your classroom teachers. And given the time and the ability to work together in true professional, collaborative, professional, and here we're talking about teaching students collaboration and critical thinking and creativity. What are we doing for the adults in our building to allow them to use those skills themselves to enhance learning?
I think we have to, what folks can do, what we can all do together, is we have to change from aspiration to action. And I like to use the metaphor of the football quarterback. He doesn't throw the pass to the person on the line. They look down the field to some future place. And so I think we have to envision what that looks like and put our plan in place, because we often go away with broad themes or ideas. And so if I were to say, for example, yes, I support the expansion of the types of arts programs, what does that mean? So for me, as we go back and look at our Vision 2020, I want to make sure that we embed some actions in that, talking points, other kinds of things. So that's, to me, would be the most important thing that we could all do. And secondly, just brag. You know, just brag. It's really good stuff.
Right, exactly.
And that's the best advocacy you have, because when parents see their kids successful, we're on a winning path.
Great. Rose?
So I think back to, you know, I think actually Pat just said it, you know, making our arts teacher, you know, like the school leader. And I could think back to when I was in school, even my kids, you know, the art room, the music teacher, those were where, you know, you needed an appointment with the guidance counselor, or something was going on. You pulled people out of that class because it wasn't made a priority. But now I think to today, where last year our teacher of the year is an arts teacher. And this year, being on the panel, I'm a big fan, you know, being on the panel again for the county teachers of the year, we had so many county teachers that were actually in the arts field. And I think that has come a long way. But like we said, make it a priority, make the commitment. And like I would say, if you build it, they will come. And I do believe that the students and their families are looking for programs to be able to engage into.
Great. Larry?
Well, I think we all agree. Again, my point probably comes down to what I said earlier about effective communication. We all know that the arts promote academic achievement and growth, but I still maintain it's somewhat of a secret to the people that it shouldn't be such a secret, and that's the data and the research. In the spirit of Bob Morrison, if you don't use data, then you just are an individual with another opinion. Let's get the data out there. Let's get the research out there to our decision makers, and all of us up here and those in the audience have a dramatic impact in that arena. Let's get it out that the promotion of the arts actually does have such a dramatic impact on the lives of children. And it's got to be done in a thorough and proper manner, and it has to be sustained. We have to talk about the arts and its impact on kids at all of our conferences, all the time.
Yeah, and if I can, let me close too by just saying to you, picking up on that, when I came to Dodge, I had a long experience in sort of public policy in New Jersey, a lot on the environment and education, and more in a generalist. I had very little work that I had been involved in the arts, other than I served in Tom Kaine's administration when he was governor, so I knew of his commitment to it. But when I first got to Dodge, one of the first things I did it was in 2010, and it was near the time of our poetry festival, and we had just moved it to Newark, and I went to the first poetry festival, for me anyway, and I don't know how many of you have ever been to one, but we have one of the days a student day. And this last year alone, we had 5,000 high school students from some 18 or more states. Kids that after each festival go home and start raising money for airfare, hotels, and everything, just to be able to come to the Geraldine R. Dodge Poetry Festival. And what really just blew me away in that first year was going into Prudential Hall, which is the main hall of the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. There were some, I don't know, it was packed. And it holds, I think, 2,800 kids, or 2,800 people can be housed in that auditorium at one time. And it's just an exchange. You know, we don't talk about writing poetry or analyzing poetry. It's all about the poets coming in and reading and reciting their own poetry and then having an exchange, an interaction with the audience. That place was packed, and you could hear a pin drop. This was high school kids, and they were so mesmerized by the session. And I came to appreciate then more than ever the power of the arts to affect kids and how it is so important in their lives, and that some kids learn best through the arts. They don't do well if you take them in through another window, but if you take them in through the arts door, they can read, they can do math, they can do all kinds of other things as a result of that. So that came true to me, and it has made me certainly one of the big proponents of arts education and supporting the work that we've done at our foundation and what others are doing across the state. So the most important thing I'd like to leave you with is keep up the good work. I mean, you all have been doing amazing work, and we need to continue it. And I'd like you to end by one, I want to acknowledge, I didn't acknowledge, and I should have in the beginning, FEA, both for sponsoring this day, but for all the good work they do in arts education. And then, of course, to acknowledge the panelists for their contributions today. So please join me in thanking them all.